Hello guys and welcome to my new video, and today we'll be talking about the best classes in Mythic Plus. We'll be looking at the MDI Time Trials that happened during last weekend, and there was a lot of interesting team compositions that are happening in these 18 plus runs. So before we're actually going to go into it, we first have to mention that the MDI rules, you have 3 keys to run. They're going to be plus 18s. The first, or at least one of the keys, is going to be 18 Atal Desire. It's going to have Fortified, Raging, and Explosive Affix. Another key is going to be 18 on the Rot. It's going to have Tyrannical, Sanguine, and Volcanic. And you also have to finish off 18 King's Rest with Tyrannical, Bursting, and Skittish. So these 3 keys are part of your, how do I say it, part of your time trial, and the quickest runs are obviously going to be the ones that are going to be qualified. And there's been a lot of data that's kind of being gathered from these keys. A lot of the team compositions have kind of changed from your usual plus 24, 25 key, because I think right now 25 is the highest key that's done in time, and the composition for those kind of keys differ a lot from the plus 18s. And we'll talk about the class balance, we'll talk about the tanks, we'll talk about the healers, and we'll talk about the melee and range DPS. So let's get into it. So this here is a chart of the 20 quickest 18 Atal Desire keys done in the time trial period. And you can see here, you can already see some sort of a composition happening here. Before I'm gonna go more into this, you know, Prot Warriors being so strong, Resto Druids being so strong, melee composition being so strong, I have to mention a big disclaimer, guys. These kind of, or the data that you get from time trials where the best Mythic Plus players play, and they try to optimize these 3 keys, plus 18s. Plus 18s are not that high to these crazy impressive Mythic Plus players who are pushing 24s, 25s at the moment. The group composition that I'm going to be talking about is not going to reflect majority of other players who are looking to do those plus 10 keys, plus 11 keys. I don't want the players who are pushing those plus 10 keys to feel that they need to have a Prot Warrior, to feel that they need to have double Outlaw Rogue or things like that in order to succeed in their plus 10 keys, because you don't. This is a highly optimized, there is high optimized composition. No one should be shocked by class stacking at this point, because these are the kind of players that are looking to push every extra percentage to complete the dungeon quicker and to get qualified. So no class is ever going to be balanced that everyone's equal. There's always going to be classes that are going to be a little bit better, a tiny bit better, and these top players will be looking to push the most out of their classes. But there's definitely a group composition that's appearing out of this, and it's to do, or is stemming, in my opinion, from the tank. So Protection Warrior has become the go-to tank for majority of these runs. Atal Desire, you can see under Rot, Prot Warrior is basically the tank to use in these high keys, or at least in time trials. And it's not only to do with the recent buffs that they received in 8.1, it's also it's a lot to do is with the damage. The Prot Warrior damage is actually insane at the moment. It's physical damage. They can do a good Prot Warrior in a time trial. You have to remember, in time trial realms, you can get to pick any gear that you want, any trinkets that you want from the current iteration of the game, BfA, and you can pick Azeroth traits and things like that. So all of a sudden, a Prot Warrior will be considered by many as the 4th DPS of the team, where Prot Warrior will probably be pushing the same DPS as your other DPSs, which is insane coming from a tank. Prot Warrior is by far the highest DPS in the game right now out of the tanks, and their mitigation is actually quite good. A lot of people forget that Prot Warriors received quite a few buffs in 8.1 and things like that, and their mitigation is good. A Prot Warrior can feel very safe tank to heal. If you compare it to something like a Blood DK, who used to be the best tank coming into BfA, their utility was unmatched and their self-healing was really strong, considering that their mitigation was good. Their mitigation was nerfed a lot, and all of a sudden Blood DK is considered as the utility tank. If you need that mass grip, if you need that battle res, you'll probably pick up a Blood DK. If you don't need those things, if you need the DPS, if you need a good mitigation, you'll probably go with a Prot Warrior, and Prot Warrior is going to be a very safe choice. So all of a sudden Blood DK has been dethroned from being the best tank, and all of a sudden Prot Warrior, the damage, the mitigation is really strong, and it's the #1 choice for not only plus 18 keys. If we look at the 25s, 24s and things like that, Prot Warrior is the one to choose, and it's an extremely fun tank to play. The damage is really high, and I mentioned they are doing really well at the moment. And this is why I mentioned tanks at the start, because I feel from the tank meta of Prot Warrior, we have the new meta that's emerging in plus 18 keys, and that is a Windwalker and sometimes triple melee. Let's call it triple melee. And a lot of these runes will be running things like double Outlaw Rogue with a Windwalker Monk and then a Resto Druid. And I feel this kind of meta is born from a Prot Warrior. Prot Warrior is amazing DPS, physical damage. Then you have Outlaw Rogues. Outlaw Rogues are just doing insanely well at the moment. A lot of the teams will be picking at least one rogue, and it's probably going to be Outlaw Rogue. Outlaw has been very strong. Their AoE, their uncapped AoE damage is really strong, and considering that if you're going to do a Taldazar in 15 minutes, plus 18 on Taldazar in 15 minutes, you are going to be doing some chain pulling. You're going to be involved in AoE damage throughout the whole dungeon. An Outlaw Rogue uncapped AoE is actually insanely strong. The single target is pretty decent. It's nothing to be laughed at, but their AoE is incredible. And all of a sudden you'll be stacking 2 of these Outlaw Rogues, depending on which comp you go. And because you are already having this melee heavy comp, you have to bring in a Monk. So you have to get that 5% physical damage buff that's coming from Mystic Touch. If you have a Monk in a group, that Monk, anything it touches, that target is going to take 5% physical damage more. All of a sudden, you have a Prot Warrior physical damage. You have your double Outlaw Rogues physical damage. And then you bring a Monk. And most likely it's going to be a Windwalker Monk. Windwalker Monk is going to apply that 5% physical damage buff to everybody in the party. For all the DPS in the party. So that's an extremely strong thing. It's not only because you don't only bring a Windwalker Monk just because of the physical damage buff. The physical damage buff is really big when you're running this melee heavy comp. But Windwalkers are not a bad melee DPS anyways. They're probably somewhere below a Rogue and Demon Hunter, or maybe even somewhere close to them already. So Windwalker was never a terrible DPS. It was somewhere close to the top. But this 5% physical damage buff has kind of propelled them into this meta. And you can see that happening in a lot of these runs where they have a Windwalker to give that extra 5%. Now you could argue to the fact there is some Unholy DKs coming into the meta. Unholy can provide some insane AoE damage as well. So let's say you're running with a Protection Warrior. You're running with a double Outlaw Rogue and you're running with a Windwalker Monk. What are you missing? You're missing Balres. So you need to bring a healer that's going to provide that battle res capabilities, and Resto Druid is here. Resto Druid is the only healer that can provide a battle res out of the healers, and I'm saying it like, you might think that I'm saying this like Resto Druid is only good because of battle res. Resto Druid is probably right now the highest output healer in 5-man dungeons. Mana issues are not really there. They provide a lot of utility. They have an easy way of dealing damage, and dealing damage in these high keys is very important as a healer. So all of a sudden, it's not only the battle res the Resto Druids bring. They're probably overall the top healer right now for not only 18s, not only time trials, but those 24, 25 keys. And Resto Druids, on top of their battle res, on top of their good DPS, on top of their high throughput, on top of their easy way of dealing damage, they're basically the one and only healer in these time trial keys. So you can see Resto Druids, of course there's exceptions with certain Holy Paladins, possibly Glimmer of Light Holy Paladins. There are a few Mistweavers as well, and you can see that happening as well. But Resto Druid has been a really dominant. And if we actually go to some of the pie charts, I know everyone loves pie charts, and there's a guy or there's a girl from a Reddit user who posted this, and I'll link all of these in the description as well. Made a really nice chart of the top 8 teams and their group compositions, and you can see in terms of tanks, it's all about that Protection Warrior, which backs up what I was saying before. If you look in terms of healers, Resto Druid is a dominating healer. Of course, battle res is important because a lot of these compositions are running this comp with melee heavy. In terms of melee DPS, Outlaw Rogues are the kings here, but I can also mention Unholy Decay could possibly be there. You can also see Havoc Demon Hunters are still strong. The melee meta has not really changed from the very start of BfA. It's always been that Rogue, it's always been that Demon Hunter. Unholy is kind of coming in here. And now Windwalker is being pushed into this meta because of the 5% physical damage buff, which is very interesting. And in terms of range DPS, you can see there's very few range DPS being chosen. Elemental Shamans have been a very strong range DPS both in raids and 5-man dungeons because of the massive buffs that they received coming into 8.1 and things like that. So it's no surprise to see Elemental. It's no real surprise to see Shadow Priest. Shadow Priests have received certain buffs. I kind of wanted to see more mages. Mages were doing, Frost mages especially, were doing quite well. And Warlocks, if this was a previous patch, Demo would probably be very, very dominant. But Demonology Warlocks received massive nerfs in terms of the Azeroth traits, massive nerfs in terms of fixing bugs that made Demo locks really, really strong in the previous patches. And this all have been changed coming into time trials, so you don't see that many Demo. And this is a final chart where you can see range DPS being compared to melee DPS, and the melee comps are definitely the ones that are kind of prevalent right now. If you really wanted to look at the highest keys being done, and this is something for viewers of this video and something to discuss in the comment section, why has this meta happening in the plus 18s and why this meta is not being prevalent in these 25, 24 keys? If you look at some of the breakdowns of the most popular classes, unique class population in mythic levels, plus 20, you'll notice again Prot Warriors, Outlaw Rogues, you'll notice Restoration Druids, you'll notice Havoc Demon Hunters, and then there's Frost Mages, there's Unholy, there's Blood Decays. Why is this meta being incorporated in plus 18s and not plus 24s or 25s? A lot of people will say that, hey, in plus 18s, the mobs are not as dangerous, the bosses are not as dangerous, we're looking for the fastest clear speed. This is basically speed running. In plus 25s, 24s, utility plays a bigger role. But you can also notice that in some of these 24s and 25 keys that are being done right now, there is a certain appearance of double rogue. There is a certain appearance of triple melee comps happening. So who knows, maybe in the next future, in the next couple months, the meta of a Windwalker, triple melee, maybe double rogue, maybe Blood Decay, and Prot Warrior is going to be all we're going to see at the highest keys possible. It might be, but again, big disclaimer guys, these rankings at these like time trial keys and things like that, they're always super skewed. They should not affect you doing that plus 10 keys and things like that. As a comparison, let's look at last year's MDI time trial group composition, and we can go and see a time trial plus 22 return to Karazhan, upper Karazhan. This was the time trials, top 20 keys being done. Do you see a single healer in here? Everyone was running 4 DPS and a tank composition for these time trial keys. So you can see that these keys and the group compositions can be skewed. So don't feel down if you're not playing that Prot Warrior. Don't feel down if you're not playing that Outlaw Rogue or Windwalker, Resto Druid. Your class can be capable of doing high keys. Maybe not time trial plus 18 keys, but more than good enough depending on what level of play you are playing in World of Warcraft. Again, thank you guys for watching this video. I hope this video will encourage discussion. Hopefully this won't get you down depending on what class you play. Thank you for watching this video. Please leave a comment below and things like that if you like this, if you want to see more videos like this. If you like the video, please do subscribe, check out Patreon and things like that. It really helps out the channel to grow and for me to maintain and keep doing these videos. Thank you guys, and I'll see you in my next guide.